They said the family print shop was too delicate for someone like me. Funny, right? I was the one who kept the machines running, handled the contracts, pulled all-nighters when everyone else slept, but when it came time to choose an heir, my parents handed the shop, my shop, to my sister's husband, a man who didn't even know how to load paper. I didn't argue. I walked out, bought a second-hand press, and built something they never saw coming. If you're interested in this topic, hit the like button, subscribe, and type "interested" in the comments, and I will give you a heart. I grew up with ink under my fingernails and paper cuts on my hands, and I used to think that was beautiful. While other kids were out at sleepovers or school dances, I was in the family print shop, breathing in the warm smell of toner and fresh paper, helping my dad unclog printers and my mum collate orders until my eyes blurred. That shop wasn't just a business to me. It was my childhood, my education, my entire identity wrapped in fluorescent lights and the constant hum of machines. My mum's. I knew every client by name, every rush order, every deadline that almost broke us, and every miracle that pulled us through at the last second. And through all of it, my parents called it our shop. But somehow, ours always felt like it meant everyone but me. My sister Claire treated the place like a prop. She'd swoop in on Saturdays, take aesthetic photos of stacks of invitations for her social media, post some caption about family hustle, and then disappear again. She never stayed long enough to smell like ink, never touched the machines, never dealt with the nightmare clients who changed their minds after we'd already printed 1,000 copies. But in every family photo hung on the shop wall, she was always front and center, and I was always somewhere in the back, half hidden behind a printer. That should have told me everything. It didn't. I still believed that if I worked hard enough, if I sacrificed enough, they would see me as the natural heir. You'd think I'd have learnt by now that in families like mine, logic and loyalty don't stand a chance against favoritism wrapped in a nice dress and a charming husband. When Claire got married, that's when everything really began to shift. Not suddenly, but silently, like the slow sinking of a ship. Her husband, Mark, was charming in that rehearsed, polished way people get when they spend more time networking than actually working. He worked in marketing, which, as far as I could tell, meant posting vague graphics online and calling it strategy. My parents adored him. Every sentence out of his mouth was vision, brand, scaling, modernizing. I'd been saying we should improve our online presence for years, but coming from me, it was too risky and too different. Coming from him, it was genius. One night, after closing, I stayed late to finish a massive order for a local university. They had changed their design 3 times that week, and if we didn't deliver by morning, we'd lose the contract. My dad was exhausted, my mum already home, and I told them to go rest. "I've got this," I said. I printed until my back hurt, until my hands were raw, until the machines whined from being pushed to their limit. I slept in the back office on a rolling chair, woke up before sunrise, packed the order and delivered it myself. The university renewed with us for 3 more years. My dad thanked the family for it at dinner. Claire posted about our resilience on her page. Mark commented with clapping emojis. No one mentioned the fact that I was the only one who hadn't slept. That's when a tiny voice in me started asking the questions I didn't want to answer. If you were gone, would they really notice? That answer came sooner than I expected. The day everything shifted, my dad called a family meeting at the shop. That phrase had never meant anything good in our house. I walked in from the back room with toner on my hands, wiping them on a rag as I joined everyone near the front counter. My mum stood beside my dad, both of them looking weirdly formal. Claire and Mark sat on the stools we kept for waiting customers, but they weren't waiting. They already knew. My father cleared his throat. "We've been giving this a lot of thought," he began. "Your mother and I getting older. We can't run the shop forever." My heart started pounding. I'd waited years to hear those words. I straightened my posture without even meaning to, ready to finally be seen. "We need to think about the future," Mum added, "about who will carry the legacy." My chest burned. This was it. This was the moment every late night, every missed social event, every sacrifice had been preparing me for. Dad continued, "We want the print shop to stay in the family, to be run by someone who can take it to the next level, someone with leadership, business sense, connections, and drive." I nodded, swallowing, trying not to look too eager. Claire crossed her legs. Mark adjusted his watch. Dad took a breath. "So, we've decided. We're transferring the shop to Mark." For a second, I genuinely thought I misheard him. My brain tried to rearrange the words into something that made sense. "We're transferring Mark to the shop. We're transferring you the shop." Anything but what he actually said. "I'm sorry," I said slowly, my voice barely holding together. "You're... what?" Dad looked at me like I was being unreasonable for not immediately applauding. "This is what's best for the business," he said. "Best for the business?" I repeated, feeling like someone had scooped my insides out with a spoon. "I've been here my entire life. I run the orders. I manage the clients. I know every machine in this place. And you're giving it to your son-in-law." "He has a degree," Mum offered, as if that explained everything. "He understands the online market," Dad added. "He has a vision," Clara chimed in. I stared at her. "My vision wasn't enough?" I asked. She smiled the kind of smile you give a child who doesn't understand how the world works. "You're great at operations," she said, "but owning a business is different." "I've been owning it in everything but paperwork," I snapped, "and you know it." Dad's face hardened. "Watch your tone," he said. That was the moment I knew this wasn't a discussion, it was a verdict. My whole body went cold. "So what happens to me?" I asked, even though I already knew the answer in my gut. Mum folded her arms. "You can stay on," she said, "as staff. Mark will run the high-level side and you can help with production. It's still the family business." Staff. I went from heir to employee in one sentence. "You want me to work under him?" I asked. "Under someone who doesn't know the difference between cardstock and photo paper." Mark laughed nervously. "Come on," he said. "We'll be a great team. I've got the strategy, you've got the hands-on stuff. It makes sense." The hands-on stuff. This man, who had never once cleared a jammed printer, was calling my entire life's work hands-on stuff. "What if I don't agree?" I asked quietly. Dad's shoulders squared. "The decision's made," he said. "We've already signed the papers." "Signed? The papers? Without me? Without even telling me? Without a conversation?" I realized in that moment I wasn't being asked to accept it. I was being told to. If you were me, if your parents just handed your life's work to a man who treated it like a side quest, would you stay and swallow it? Or would something in you finally snap? I didn't snap the way people do in movies. There was no screaming, no dramatic speech, no overturned table. Something much quieter happened. Something far more dangerous. It was like a switch flipped inside me, shutting off whatever tiny, desperate part of me still believed I could earn their approval if I just worked harder. I felt myself detach, like I'd stepped out of my own body and was watching the scene from above. My parents were talking, still justifying the decision, still explaining how fair it was, how logical, how future-focused. Claire was nodding with that smug, soft smile she always wore when life handed her things she never worked for. Mark kept tapping his wedding ring against the counter, pretending humility but glowing with pride. And me? I stood perfectly still, Turner still smudged on my fingers, listening to the people I loved most explain, in the most polite, rehearsed, civilized way. That I was replaceable. Actually, no, not even replaceable. Convenient, useful, temporary. I didn't trust myself to speak, so I didn't. I just walked past them, through the back room, grabbed my bag and left. No one followed. No one called my name. Not one person said, "Wait, let's talk." The bell above the shop door jingled cheerfully as it closed behind me. The sound felt cruel. Outside the sun was warm, but I felt cold. That deep kind of cold that settles under your skin. I walked without direction, just letting the shock push my feet forward. My phone buzzed with messages, none from my parents, of course. Group chats, promotions, a sale notification. Not one person who should have cared noticed that something inside me had just died. I walked until my legs hurt, until my anger burned hotter than the humiliation, and somewhere between anger and heartbreak I realized something painfully simple. I didn't owe them anything anymore. Not my time, not my effort, not my loyalty. They had signed papers. They had chosen their heir. They had shown me exactly where I stood, and I was done begging for a place in a family that kept changing the locks. I didn't cry until I got home, and when the tears came, they weren't gentle. They were years of swallowed pain finally ripping free. Every criticism, every dismissal, every time they told me to wait my turn, every holiday where Claire got praised while I got tasks, every sacrifice they chalked up as expected. It all poured out of me like I'd been cracked open. When I finally calmed down, my eyes swollen and throat burning, I saw something on my kitchen table that nearly made me laugh. A stack of catalogues from the print shop showcasing our legacy. Our legacy. I pushed them aside and grabbed my laptop instead. If they didn't want me, fine. If they thought I wasn't worthy, fine. If they believed I didn't have the mind to run a business, even after I'd practically run theirs, that they had forgotten something. Something huge. Something fatal. I wasn't their heir anymore. I wasn't their employee. I wasn't their silent daughter in the back of the shop. I was free. And if they thought freedom meant I would fade quietly into the background, they didn't know me at all. I opened my laptop, wiped my tears, and started researching used printing equipment. It was impulsive, reckless, borderline impossible, and yet it felt more right than anything I'd done in years. Every listing I saw reminded me of a skill I had, a problem I'd solved, a crisis I'd pulled the shop out of. They had underestimated me so deeply they didn't even consider this possibility. I could start my own shop. They thought I'd be too devastated, too loyal, too dependent, too afraid. They weren't just wrong, they were blind. And then something happened that pushed me from determined to unstoppable. A notification popped up on my phone. A picture Claire posted. A picture taken inside the print shop. She was hugging Mark in front of one of the machines. The caption said, "So proud of my husband taking over our family business. Excited for what we will build together." We. The same woman who refused to lift a box was claiming credit before her husband even touched a single machine. The comments were worse. "You two deserve it. So fitting. You'll do amazing. Legacy secured." Not one mention of me, not 1 ounce of acknowledgement. It felt like they were erasing me in real time. And that's when the pain turned into resolve. If you were me, if your family celebrated giving your life's work to someone else while pretending you'd never existed, would you sit there and accept it? Or would you rise, even if it terrified you? I shut my laptop, stood up, and made a decision that felt like oxygen flooding my lungs. I was going to build my own print shop. No matter how long it took, no matter how hard it was, no matter how many people doubted me. And when I was done, they would watch everything they threw away grow into something far bigger than they ever imagined. They had signed papers. Now, I was signing a destiny. I didn't sleep that night. My body tried, but my mind wasn't having it. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my parents' faces. Calm, certain, confident, while they handed my entire life to a man who didn't even know how to refill ink cartridges. I saw Claire's smug smile, the way she tilted her head like she was comforting a child who didn't understand the adult world. I saw Mark shaking my father's hand like he'd earned something, like he had bled for it, like he had sacrificed anything at all. And beneath all of that, beneath the rage and betrayal, something else was rising. Clarity. A brutal, unshakable clarity I had never felt before. I wasn't staying small anymore. I wasn't going to be the quiet daughter in the back room while everyone else took the credit. I wasn't going to die in the shadow of a legacy I built but never owned. And once that thought took root, sleep became impossible. So I got up. I brewed coffee so strong it could have cleaned the machines at the shop. I sat at my table with my laptop and started doing what I had trained myself my whole life to do: solve problems methodically. Step 1, equipment. Step 2, location. Step 3, funding. Step 4, building a client base. Step 5, outgrowing them. Step 6, making them choke on every assumption they ever made about me. But planning wasn't enough. I needed action. So the next morning I took a deep breath, grabbed my bag, and stepped into the world as a woman with nothing left to lose. And I swear, that kind of freedom changes the air around you. It makes you walk different, think different, breathe different. I visited old suppliers, ones my parents assumed would never deal with me independently. But assumptions don't pay bills, relationships do. I heard what happened, one supplier said, shaking his head as he typed up a quote. You deserved better. I swallowed hard. It felt good to be seen, even briefly. You're starting your own thing? He asked. Yes, I said without hesitation. And I'm not looking back. He leaned in slightly. Good. Because your family's new boss came in last week asking for terms he didn't understand. He didn't even know what half his own inventory is. I felt something flare inside me. Vindication, maybe. Fuel. Take whatever credit line you need, he added. You've earned it. Your parents, well, they're about to learn something. I left with my first 2 pieces of equipment on order, my heart pounding with something dangerously close to joy. The beginnings of my new shop were forming, and yet I knew my family had no idea. I didn't post anything. I didn't announce anything. I moved like a shadow, quiet, strategic, inevitable. The next step was finding a space. I spent days touring old warehouses, small units, unused corners of industrial blocks. None felt right until I walked into a narrow, dusty unit at the edge of town. It wasn't pretty, it wasn't modern, it wasn't prestigious, but it had good bones, a sturdy floor, enough outlets, high ceilings, and cheap rent. And most importantly, it didn't remind me of them. I'll take it, I said immediately. The landlord blinked. Don't you want to think about it? No, I said, not at all. And just like that, I had a space, my space. The next few days were a blur of cleaning, painting, setting up, sweeping, arranging, scrubbing, ordering parts, building work tables, assembling equipment, and working until my muscles screamed. It was exhausting. It was overwhelming. It was everything I had ever wanted. And the entire time, not once did my parents call, not once did my sister text, not once did anyone ask where I had gone. They didn't notice I hadn't shown up for work. They didn't care enough to check on me. At first, that hurt. Then it stopped hurting. Then it started helping. Their silence made me louder inside. Their absence sharpened me. Their rejection became my blueprint. By the end of the week, my new shop looked nothing like a startup and everything like a declaration. Boxes of fresh paper were stacked neatly. My refurbished printer hummed with life. My workstation was organized in a way my parents' shop never allowed. Efficient, thoughtful, professional. I stepped back, looking at everything I had built with my own hands, and I felt something I never felt in that old print shop. Pride. Not the kind you earn from pleasing others, the kind you earn from building something that belongs only to you. But the universe wasn't done testing me. 2 days after opening, I received my first job. An urgent request from a local bakery that needed custom labels by morning. I worked all night, printing, cutting, packaging, double-checking every detail. And when I delivered them the next day, the owner gasped. "These are perfect," she said. "Can I switch all my printing to you?" "Absolutely," I replied, trying not to cry on the spot. And that was the first domino. More clients followed. Small businesses, independent creators, local events. People came because they wanted good work. They stayed because I actually cared about their deadlines, their vision, their reputation. Meanwhile, my family shop was slipping. Slowly at first, then embarrassingly fast. Late orders, wrong colors, incorrect paper stocks, machine breakdowns. Clients calling the shop and hearing we're figuring things out instead of we've got you. Word gets around, especially in small towns, especially when a new competitor was delivering exactly what they couldn't. One morning, while I was loading a box of prints into my car, I heard footsteps approaching behind me. I turned, and there they were, Claire and Mark, both looking out of place in my humble shop. Claire's expression was pinched, like she smelled something unpleasant. Mark looked like he'd aged 10 years in 2 weeks. "Hello," Claire said, eyes scanning the room. "This is what you've been doing? Huh?" I wiped my hands on a rag, lifted my chin and looked her dead in the eye. "Yes," I said, "this is what I've been doing." And the way their faces shifted. Shock, envy, fear, confusion. It was almost enough to make every sleepless night worth it. Almost. Because they weren't there to congratulate me. They weren't there to apologize. They weren't there to acknowledge me. They were there for something else entirely. Something pettier, uglier, and far more satisfying for me to hear. "We need to talk," Mark said, voice cracking. "The shop. We're having some issues." Issues. The word hung in the air like a cheap apology. If you and me, if the people who threw you away suddenly showed up needing the very strength they denied you, would you help them? Or would you finally let them feel what they taught you your whole life? Good luck without me. I didn't say a word at first. I just stood there, arms crossed over my chest, letting the silence stretch long enough for Claire to start shifting uncomfortably in her shoes. Mark kept glancing around my shop, like he couldn't decide whether to admire it or resent it. I knew that look. It was the same look he wore when someone else succeeded without his help. Confusion mixed with bruised ego. "Issues," I finally said, keeping my voice calm, level, painfully polite. "What kind of issues?" Mark cleared his throat. "Some orders got delayed." "Delayed?" I repeated. "How delayed?" "A few weeks," he admitted. Claire jumped in quickly. "It wasn't his fault. The machines are acting up." "Acting up?" I echoed. "You mean the machines I maintained for years without a single malfunction?" Claire rolled her eyes like I was being dramatic. "Well, they're old, you know that?" "Yes," I nodded. "I do. Which is why I service them regularly." Mark swallowed hard. "Look, your dad said we should ask you to help." The laugh that came out of me wasn't loud or hysterical. It was small, sharp, and cold. The kind of laugh that comes from someone who's been insulted too many times to feel anything but clarity. "My dad," I said softly, "wants me to fix the shop he took from me." Claire stiffened. "You don't have to say it like that." "How should I say it?" I asked. "That he transferred the business I built to a man who didn't know what alignment rollers were until last month?" Mark's ears turned red. "We're trying our best, it's just complicated. Running a business is complicated, I said. Remember, that's what you all told me when you said I wasn't ready. Claire flinched, then tried to recover with a brittle smile. We just need you to help out, for a bit, until things stabilize. Help out, I repeated quietly. A staff? The moment I said the word, both their faces changed. They knew exactly what I was referencing. No, not like that, Mark blurted. More like consulting. I actually stepped back and smiled. Slow, calm, dangerous. Consulting, I repeated, tasting the word. Your business is falling apart. Clients are complaining, suppliers are frustrated, and you're asking me to consult? Yes, Claire insisted, stepping closer. This is still the family shop. You grew up there. Don't you care what happens to it? My eyes locked with hers. No. Her face fell. She wasn't expecting that. What do you mean, no? She asked, voice cracking a little. I mean, I said, I don't care, not anymore. Not after the way I was treated, not after being replaced, not after being told I wasn't enough unless I worked under your husband. The words hit her like a slap. Mark opened his mouth, probably to defend himself, but I cut him off. Let me tell you something, I said quietly. I begged for their approval for years. I tried to earn a place in a family that only valued me when I was useful, but now, I gestured around my shop. Now I'm done living in a world where I have to shrink to make room for people who never made room for me. Claire's lip trembled. She wasn't used to me speaking like this. She was used to the version of me who apologized just to keep the peace. That girl was dead. It's not fair, she muttered. We're really struggling. You should have thought about fairness, I said, before you took everything from me. Mark exhaled shakily. Please. The shop won't survive without help. I raised an eyebrow. Then it won't survive. Claire's jaw dropped. You can't be serious. I'm very serious. It's the family legacy. It was, I corrected. Until you cut me out. She opened her mouth to argue again, but the door to my shop opened, and two men walked in carrying a large box. Order for Morrison print, one of them said. I nodded and pointed them to the counter. Mark and Claire stared in disbelief as the men unloaded supplies from the same distributor their shop used, the same distributor who used to give my parents priority. Why are they delivering to you? Claire asked, stunned. Because I placed an order, I said, and because they trust me to manage it. The workers finished, nodded at me respectfully and left. Claire stared at the closed door as if she had just witnessed a betrayal. You're taking our clients, she whispered. No, I said calmly. Your clients are choosing me. Why? Because I deliver on my promises. We can deliver too, she snapped. I tilted my head. Can you? Her lips pressed into a thin, angry line. Mark rubbed his forehead like it hurt. Look, he said, voice quieter now, weaker. Your parents are worried. They didn't expect all of this. They didn't think things would go wrong. They didn't think? I said simply. That's the problem. Clara stepped forward suddenly, her voice shaking with desperation, more than anger this time. Just help us, please. I looked at her. For a long time. For a moment, a tiny part of me almost softened. Then I remembered the look on her face the day my parents announced the transfer. The pride, the satisfaction, the entitlement, the absolute certainty that she deserved everything I had worked for. The softness evaporated. No, I said. One word, and the air in the room changed. Something inside Claire cracked. You're heartless, she whispered. No, I replied. I'm finally protecting myself. Then the door opened again. This time, a woman I recognized, Mrs. Meadows, one of our oldest clients. She looked around and smiled. "Oh, you're open. Good." Claire and Mark turned toward her, like drowning people spotting a lifeboat. "Mrs. Meadows," Claire said, rushing forward. "We can help you at the family shop." "Oh, no, dear," the woman said, patting her arm dismissively. "I don't go there anymore. Too many mistakes. Too many excuses. I'm with her now." She pointed at me, and I swear the room tilted. Claire's face fell so hard I almost heard it break. Mark's shoulders sagged like someone had cut his strings. If you were them, I thought, watching their entire world collapse in front of them, what would you do? Keep pretending you were right, or finally face the truth? For the first time in years, I didn't care what they chose, because I had finally chosen myself. I didn't savor the moment the way people assume you do when karma finally clocks in. It wasn't fireworks or confetti or some movie-style epiphany. It was quieter, colder, like the slow settling of snow after an avalanche when you finally see the shape of the mountain you just survived. Claire and Mark stood frozen as Mrs. Meadows chatted with me about a rebranding project, fonts, colors, deadlines, speaking to me the way clients speak to professionals they trust. Not once did she even acknowledge that my sister and her husband were standing 3 feet away. When she left, Claire looked like she'd just watched her reflection crack. "Is this seriously happening?" she whispered. "Are people actually choosing you?" I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Silence can be the cruelest form of truth. Claire ran a shaky hand through her hair. "We didn't do anything wrong," she said, but the way she said it made it sound like she was trying to convince herself. "It was a business decision. You're overreacting." Overreacting? That word hit me harder than anything she'd said so far. I stepped closer. Not threatening, not towering, just close enough for her to see the version of me she had helped create. "I'm not overreacting," I said. "I'm responding." I watched the confusion flicker in her eyes, then turn into panic. "To what?" she asked. "To the truth," I replied, and the truth was something she'd never learned to handle. Before she could argue, my phone buzzed. I almost ignored it, but the caller ID made me freeze. Dad. My father never called me. Not unless he wanted something, not unless the situation was dire. I let it ring twice before answering. "Hello?" I said, my voice steady. "Where are you?" he demanded. Not worried, not gentle, just irritated. Like my disappearance was an inconvenience. "Working," I said. There was a long pause, then a sharp inhale. "Is it true?" he asked. "Is what true?" I asked, even though I already knew the answer. "That you've opened your own shop." His voice was tight, stretched thin, like a thread about to snap. "Yes," I said, "it's true." Another silence. I could practically hear his jaw tightening. "You should have discussed this with us." "Why?" I asked. "You didn't discuss anything with me when you transferred the shop," he exhaled sharply. "That's different." "No," I said quietly. "It's exactly the same." In the background, I heard my mother's voice, sharp, angry, panicked. "Tell her to come home. Tell her she's ruining everything." Dad lowered his voice. "Your mother thinks." "I don't care what she thinks." The words came out softly, but they were sharper than anything I'd ever said to him. "What matters," I added, "is what I think." Dad went silent again. Then he asked the question he never imagined he'd ask me. "Are you trying to compete with us?" I almost laughed. Compete? I wasn't competing. I was existing. I was choosing myself, for once, for the first time. "I'm not competing," I said. "I'm doing what you taught me to do." "And what's that?" he asked skeptically. "Work hard," I said. "Build something, take responsibility. fix things myself." "Not like this," he snapped. "You're causing tension in the family." Claire stepped closer, trying to listen in. Mark hovered behind her, pale as printer paper. "I didn't cause the tension," I said. "I just stopped pretending it wasn't there." My father's voice shook, not from sadness, but from the fear of losing control. "If you walk down this path, there's no turning back." I looked around my shop. The clean tables, the humming machines, the boxes of neatly stacked paper that represented my new life. "That's the point," I said. Dad didn't respond. I heard whispering behind him, and then, unexpectedly, my mother's voice on the line. "If you don't shut down that shop," she said, icy and sharp, "we will cut you off." Something in me snapped, not out of anger, but out of clarity. "You already did," I said, and hung up. The silence after the call felt strangely peaceful. Claire stared at me, eyes wide. "You hung up on Mum?" "Yes." "Are you insane?" "No," I said, "just done." Mark rubbed the back of his neck. "Okay, let's not escalate things. Maybe we can still work together." I looked at him, really looked at him, and realized something I'd never allowed myself to admit. He'd never seen me as an equal. Not once. "No," I said. "We can't work together. Not anymore." "You're throwing your family away," Claire hissed. "No," I corrected. "I'm letting go of people who threw me away first." She opened her mouth to argue, but the door chimed again. Another client, this time a florist who used to swear she'd never go anywhere else but my parents' shop. She walked straight past Claire and Mark and placed her order on my counter. "Your work is cleaner," she said simply. "And you actually care." When she left, Claire let out a shaking breath. "This can't be happening," she whispered. "We're losing everything." I met her eyes. "You should have thought about that before you took everything from me." Mark swallowed hard. "Your parents want a meeting. Tonight." I shook my head. "There's nothing left to meet about. Please," he said. "Just come." For the family. Family. A word that used to hold me together, now only reminded me of the hands that pushed me out. Still, something in me was curious. A twisted part of me wanted to see what desperation looked like on the people who had always believed they were untouchable. "Fine," I said. "I'll go." Claire exhaled in relief. "Thank you." "Not for you," I cut in. "For closure." As they walked out of my shop, defeated and humiliated, a question formed in my mind, dark, honest, and impossible to ignore. If you were me, heading into a room full of the people who underestimated you, hurt you, replaced you, would you forgive them? Or would you let them finally face everything they tried to bury? I didn't dress up for the family meeting. I didn't put on makeup, didn't comb my hair with any special care, didn't bother trying to soften myself for people who only appreciated me when I was convenient. I walked in exactly as I was, tired, determined, and no longer interested in being the quiet daughter who took what she was given. The meeting was at the shop, their shop, and even before I opened the door, I could feel the tension pressing against the glass like humidity before a storm. When I stepped inside, everything looked wrong. Boxes everywhere, machines unplugged, papers scattered in piles like someone had tried to organize and then given up halfway. The smell was different too. Not the warm, steady scent of ink I grew up with, but a strange mix of burnt plastic and stale air. My heart ached. Not because I missed the place, but because I knew exactly what they had done to it. My father stood near the back, arms crossed tightly over his chest. My mother was beside him, face pinched like she had tasted something sour. Claire sat on the counter, arms wrapped around herself, while Mark paced back and forth with a clipboard he clearly didn't know how to use. The moment they saw me, the room shifted. Not with warmth, not with relief, with desperation. Pure unfailing to hide. "You're late," my mother snapped immediately. "No," I said calmly, closing the door behind me. "I came at the exact time I meant to." Her eyebrows shot up, but I didn't give her time to respond. I walked further inside, my footsteps loud in the tense silence. "What's going on?" I asked flatly. My father cleared his throat. "We're having some challenges." "Challenges," I echoed. "That's a soft word for this." I gestured around the room. No one argued because they couldn't. The shop was falling apart. "We thought," my mother said stiffly, "that you might reconsider your stance and help us get things back on track." "Reconsider?" I repeated, raising a brow. "After everything?" Claire leaned forward suddenly. "We didn't mean to push you out," she said. "You're twisting things." I stared at her, expression blank. "You watched them hand my entire life to your husband and said nothing." She flinched. "I thought it was for the best." "For who?" Her gaze dropped. "For the business," she whispered. "For the family." "No," I said. "For your comfort." My father stepped in. "Enough of this. We called you because we need your help. Mark is doing his best, but he can't run the technical side." "I know," I said. "That's why the shop looks like it survived a hurricane." Mark stopped pacing. "Look, I'm trying," he said, voice cracking with exhaustion. "This shop is harder than it looks." "It's not hard if you actually care," I cut in. "It's hard if you treat it like a prop." My father's jaw clenched. "We're not here to argue. We need a solution." I met his eyes. "After everything you've done, why would you think I'm the solution?" The room froze. My mother blinked at me, stunned. They weren't used to me questioning them. They weren't used to my voice landing with weight. They weren't used to me being anything but obedient. My father finally spoke. "Because you're the only one who can save this place." There it was, the truth. Not an apology, not remorse, not love. Need. Desperate, selfish need. "And why would I do that?" I asked. "Because this is your home," my mother said, softening her tone the way she always did when she wanted something. I almost laughed. "This was never my home. It was my workplace. And then it became the place you pushed me out of." "You're being petty," Claire muttered. I snapped my head toward her. "Petty?" She swallowed. "I didn't mean petty," I repeated, stepping closer. "You watched our parents sign papers behind my back, strip me from the business I kept alive, and you think my refusal to fix the mess you all created is pettiness?" Her eyes filled with tears. "We just thought you'd be happy for us. You didn't think about me at all." The room went silent. Mark ran a hand through his hair. "Look, maybe we made mistakes. Maybe we misjudged things. But we need your help. We're drowning." I looked around again at the scattered papers, broken machines, clients' orders forgotten on shelves. It was a disaster. A disaster they expected me to fix. "What exactly do you want me to do?" I asked. My father exhaled in relief. "Help us reorganize. Stay on for a few months. Run production while Mark manages the business side. Once things stabilize." "No." One word. Sharp, immediate, final. My father blinked. "No." "No." "Why not?" "Because I built my own shop," I said. "Because I have my own clients. Because I have my own life now, and because the version of me who would have said yes doesn't exist anymore." My mother stepped forward, her voice trembling with controlled anger. "You owe this family." "I owe myself more." Her face darkened. "If you don't help, We'll lose everything." "You already lost me," I said softly, "and you didn't even notice." Claire finally broke. Tears spilled down her cheeks. "We didn't think you'd actually leave," she whispered. "We thought you'd stay because you always stayed." That hurt more than anything else they'd said, because it was true. For years I stayed. Through exploitation, through minimization, through invisibility. Not anymore. My father leaned against the counter, shoulders slumping. For the first time in my life, he looked small. "Just tell us what to do," he said quietly. "We're out of options." I took a slow breath. "Okay," I said, "here's what you do." They all straightened immediately, clinging to hope. "First," I said, "you call your clients, every single one, and apologize." Mark nodded. "We can do that." "Second," I said, "you admit to them that you replaced your only qualified worker with someone untrained." My mother stiffened. "We will not do that." "Then you'll fail," I said simply. "And lastly," I let my gaze sweep across all of them, "you leave me out of it, completely." Claire blinked. "So you won't help?" "No, at all." Mark exhaled shakily. "Then what are we supposed to do?" I walked toward the door, placed my hand on it and turned back to them. "Figure it out," I said. "It's what you expected me to do my whole life." And then, quietly, without drama, without bitterness, I delivered the line that shifted the air so sharply it felt like the room itself stopped breathing. "This is the part," I said softly, "where you deal with the consequences of underestimating me." I opened the door and stepped out. Behind me, I heard Claire start to cry, Mark whisper something frantic, and my mother hiss, "This is your fault." But none of their words reached me, because for the first time ever, I wasn't walking away in pain. I was walking away in power.